What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Division 2 build video. Today, I've got a very special build for you guys. This is probably one of the best solo builds you can run right now for the Pentagon Climax mission. The armor regeneration is just absolutely ridiculous. So, in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing my top 3 best PvE builds for Year 8 Season 1.3. With the current global modifiers and all the changes made to the game this season, some of these builds have become insanely powerful. There's more damage, better survivability, and more ways to customize to make each setup feel tailored to your playstyle. So thank you so much for being here, guys, and without further ado, let's get into it. Okay. This is a Foundry Bulwark build designed for players who want to stay aggressive in the toughest content without sacrificing too much weapon damage. It's an ideal setup for solo players, allowing you to stay aggressive by constantly restoring both your armor and shield whenever they take damage. And the Artificer Hive takes this even further by boosting skill efficiency while also periodically repairing and refreshing your ballistic shield's duration, allowing you to stay in the fight for much longer. The new Climax mission is incredibly challenging to complete as a solo player, so having survivability is crucial. For the gear setup, we'll be taking full advantage of what Foundry has to offer by running both the chest and backpack talents to maximize survivability. So, with a 4-piece Foundry set, you get stat bonuses that enhance your survivability, along with the makeshift repairs talent. So, whenever you or your shield takes damage, 25% of that amount is repaired over 10 seconds. Now, if you factor in the improved materials passive talent, which you get from the Foundry vest, that 25% gets bumped to 35%. And with the backpack, the healing speed on the makeshift repairs talent gets increased from 10 to 5 seconds. So essentially, the chest and backpack talents on gear sets usually enhance the base 4-piece talent. Now for the holster, I'm running the named Salvo Unit Alloys piece for the increased rate of fire. This holster adds up to 10% rate of fire, but I'm getting slightly more since it's a prototype piece. However, if you would rather have more damage, you can run either Fenris or the Picaro's holster instead. Personally, I prefer having the increased RPM, but if you feel like you could use more damage, then just go with Fenris. You'll get a 10% assault rifle damage bonus for one piece. For the gloves, the exotic Overdog's gloves, which basically provide you with 30% amplified damage towards lower tiered enemies in combat. These gloves are in the general loot pool as well. However, if you don't have this piece, I'm going to show you another version that you can try. Here is another version that I personally use for tougher content. So if you have the Memento backpack, you can try this version. In fact, to be honest, this version will work a lot better since Memento will provide you with extra damage, bonus armor, and armor regeneration. You don't really need the Foundry bag. So if you don't have the Overdog's gloves, but you do have Memento, you can run this version instead. For the global modifiers, I'm running Blackout for the active. Blackout is super helpful since it offers great crowd control. You know, you can shock enemies within like 30 meters from you, giving you a brief moment to react in case you're getting rushed by shotgunners or what have you. However, you can also go with Optimize Overload. This will actually help when you get to the part of the mission where you'll need to destroy the helicopters. So you're going to need a jammer pulse or a sticky EMP. This part is extremely annoying and it will really test your patience. And for the passive modifiers, I'm running offense mods. So Amplify, Convert To, and Consume. Having Convert To gives you a larger magazine size, which is amazing with the Chameleon since you're getting huge bonuses for landing shots. Since this is a Foundry build, having defense mods or protection from elites isn't necessary. Now, as far as the weapons, the Chameleon is a great option. I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but the Chameleon works extremely well with Foundry Bulwark, and this is thanks to Adaptive Instincts. So you're essentially getting up to 90% weapon damage for landing 65 body shots, 20% critical hit chance, and 50% critical hit damage for landing 30 headshots, and you'll get a 150% reload speed bonus for landing 20 leg shots. So you want to make sure you're going for those body and headshots to maintain consistent damage, right? So the Chameleon is one hell of a weapon. However, you can also run the St. Elmo's engine since it makes for a great alternative. And for the attributes on the gear pieces, you want to go with crits, so critical hit chance or critical hit damage, Foundry pieces always drop with armor for the core attributes, so you can simply recalibrate the minor attribute. And for the stats, just in case anyone's wondering, 49% critical hit chance and 135% critical hit damage on the chameleon. And for the augments on the prototype pieces, honestly, Quantum will work the best for this setup. Quantum will grant you immunity to damage for 2 seconds, so this can help a lot, and it stacks. So that's another great thing. But if you can manage to roll this augment on all of your pieces, you can only imagine how much more survivability you'll have. This next setup is great for open world activities like control points, bounties, or even retaliation. This is a great setup for solo players, and it can be played at both mid to long range. It hits extremely hard, feels consistent in combat, and gives you enough survivability to stay aggressive while clearing content efficiently. For the primary weapon, I'm running Strega, which actually synergizes nicely with the Overdog's exotic gloves, and this is because both Strega and Overdog's actually amplify your weapon damage significantly. Overall, this build feels super balanced. Like right now, I'm running it with 3 weapon damage cores and 3 armor cores, which gives you a nice middle ground between survivability and damage. Now, once you factor in global modifiers, this build becomes even stronger. You get a really nice damage boost from the passive modifiers, and I'm pretty much running the same exact mods as the previous setup: Blackout Pulse for the active, Amplify, Convert to, and Consume. For the weapon specialization, I went with Technician for the Artificer Hive. With Technician, you get access to the Artificer Hive, which helps a little with the ballistic shield's durability and recovery rate. But Gunner is another great option if you would much rather have the 10% armor on kill bonus, or the Banshee Pulse for crowd controlling NPCs, right? Now for the gear pieces, 2-piece Walker Harris for the 5% weapon damage and damage to armor bonus, which is multiplicative damage, by the way. So damage to armor essentially acts as its own multiplicative damage source, in a sense. And this means it multiplies your total damage output, making it highly effective against armored enemies. Then the named Equalizer Vest and Salvo Holster, which are both unit alloys pieces, so I get 5% rate of fire and 20% assault rifle damage. And Salvo adds an additional 7.5% rate of fire. Normally you get 5%, but since this is a prototype piece, it gets a slight increase. Now, when you also factor in the talent Perfect Obliterate, you're getting even more weapon damage. So critical hits will increase your total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds. So at max stacks, that's a very easily added 24% weapon damage, right? And a Cheska backpack with Bloodsucker. Now, Bloodsucker is one of the key aspects of this build. It essentially provides you with bonus armor for every enemy you kill. So you get 10% bonus armor per stack. Max is 10, and that's about 100% bonus armor at full stacks, which is really nice. For the attributes, you want to go with crits for the gear pieces. So critical hit chance and critical hit damage. I'm currently at 59% crit chance and 146% critical hit damage. So you can aim for something close to this. For the weapons, Strega works wonders with this setup. You get the Unnerve talent, and with this talent, killing an enemy will apply a mark on every enemy within 20 meters. And for each mark, you will deal 15% amplified weapon damage. And what's even better is that multiple marks can be applied to a single target. However, the max number that can be applied is 5, and this can stack with the Overdog's gloves, so there's a ton of multiplicative damage on this setup. For the secondary weapon, you can honestly use whatever you'd like. We'll mainly be using the Strega anyway. Now, this next build is honestly one I think every player should have saved in their loadouts. The Division 2 is a very intricate and complex looter shooter, which honestly makes it super easy to get overwhelmed as a beginner, so efficiency is everything. If you've been grinding XP lately, leveling up your Shade Watch, or maybe you're just simply trying to farm faster, this one-shot sniper build will speed things up significantly. If you're trying to speed through open world content, like control points, bounties, or just general activities around the map, you can clear everything incredibly fast with this setup, especially if your goal is to farm content quickly and efficiently. Now, there are a few different ways you can put together a one-shot sniper build, but for this setup, I'm running a 4-piece hotshot gear set paired with the Memento backpack. And this is mainly because Memento adds both extra damage and armor regeneration. The armor regeneration helps, especially on a build like this where survivability is pretty limited and you're relying heavily on positioning and cover, right? For this setup, you want to focus on maximizing headshot damage. So for the global modifiers, I'm running Cloud Armor for the active, and for the passive mods, Amplify, Convert 1, which gives you additional headshot damage instead of weapon handling, and Consume. Now the Hotshot gear set provides a nice 30% marksman rifle damage, weapon handling, and headshot damage, along with the 4-piece talent Headache. So the first headshot you land with a marksman rifle will increase the next headshot by 20%, and the second consecutive shot will give you 10% armor. However, if you're at full armor, you'll get bonus armor instead, and you'll get about 50% of your current armor value, which is pretty cool. And if you land a third consecutive shot, your magazine gets refilled. The best part about this setup is that you only need that initial headshot kill to trigger the determined talent, and after that, your next shot is a guaranteed headshot no matter where it lands. So that means even if your aim slips and you hit an enemy in the leg or foot, it will still count as a headshot. So you can start a chain killing effect, and since your ammo gets refilled after 3 consecutive headshots, you basically never have to reload. And this is where the named chain killer vest comes in handy. This is a named Walker Harris chest piece that comes with perfect headhunter. So this talent is providing a ridiculous amount of headshot damage, and it pairs very well with determined. So after killing an enemy with a headshot, your next weapon hit within 30 seconds deals an additional 150% of that killing blow's damage. And if your base headshot damage is over 150%, which is very easy to get to, by the way, but if it's over 150, you'll get up to 1200% headshot damage. If anyone here doesn't have this named vest, no worries, because you're still getting the same amount from the normal, just 25% less additional damage, right? Now, as far as the weapons, I'm currently running the SRSA1, which is one of the best marksman rifles for this setup, but the classic M44 and the SR1 are great alternatives, so these two will also work great. And here are the mods if anyone is curious. Weapon handling, accuracy, and optimal range. But yeah, you can pause the video if you need more time to look. Now, when it comes to the backpack, Memento is a great option. However, there is a small catch to it. Since this build doesn't have much survivability, the idea of having to run around to collect trophies in order to receive the buff can be extremely risky at times. But if you can manage it, the rewards definitely outweigh that downside, because you're getting that long-term buff from Memento, which has a long duration, so it's a huge benefit in my opinion. For the attributes on the gear pieces, including the mods, you want to go with headshot damage or weapon handling. I personally went with headshot damage on everything, but again, weapon handling is optional. For skills, I'm running the Reviver Hive and the Tactician Drone. This drone actually comes with this sharpshooter weapon specialization, and you also get an additional 15% headshot damage as well. And here are the stats on the primary weapon for anyone who may be wondering. So 361% headshot damage. Now, if you don't want to run Memento for whatever reason, maybe you haven't gotten it yet, or you just feel like running around collecting trophies is a little too risky with a build this squishy, you've got other options. So you can swap it out for another Walker Harris piece to get the 5% damage to armor 2-piece bonus, which gives you even more multiplicative damage, right? And if you decide to do that, don't worry about losing too much survivability, because remember, the Hotshot gear set grants bonus armor for getting consecutive headshot kills when you're at full armor. Okay? So honestly, Memento is more of an optional choice than a requirement. I'm mainly using it for the extra damage and armor regeneration, especially at full stacks. You get about 3% armor regen, which helps a lot when you're sitting in cover between engagements. This is Prajna. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate every single one of you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Love you guys, keep it cool, keep it classy, and see you in the next video. Peace out.